My name's Anita Ford. I'm 31 years old. If there's one thing my family loves more than potluck dinners and unsolicited life advice, it's gossip. Good, old fashioned, family destroying gossip. The kind that gets passed around faster than deviled eggs at Grandma's 4th of July cookout. And that's exactly how it all started. I'm the middle child, oldest daughter, and a chronic disappointment in the eyes of my family. Not because I'm in jail or addicted to anything scandalous. No, my crime is simpler. I didn't follow the script. I didn't go to college like my older sister Juliet, the golden girl with a Pinterest perfect life, and a fiancé who looks like he stepped out of a wedding catalog. I didn't become a lawyer like my younger brother Jeremy, who somehow managed to be born with both a trust fund and a superiority complex. Nope, I became a baker. Yeah, like cupcakes, sourdough, wedding cakes, dough in my nails, flour on my sleeves. A cute hobby, as my dad once called it, when I told him I'd opened a tiny bakery with my best friend. My mom reacted like I'd just confessed to moonlighting as a clown. They didn't take it seriously. Not until years later. But we're not there yet. 5 years ago, I was still living paycheck to paycheck, juggling orders, maxed out credit cards, and early mornings that started before sunrise. While I was trying not to burn my fingers on hot trays, Juliet was getting engaged to Mason, the human Ken doll with a Tesla, a trust fund, and the emotional depth of a pothole. I showed up to her engagement party wearing a button-up I'd found on sale and heels I'd resold myself. I even brought a customized engagement cake, handmade sugar flowers, 3 tiers, lemon raspberry filling, the works. I stayed up all night finishing it, even skipped a client order just to make something special for her. For a moment, a brief, shiny moment, I thought I'd finally done something right. People were complimenting the cake. Guests took photos. Even Juliet smiled at me in that rare, genuine way that made me remember sleepovers in our childhood bedroom, not silent treatments in group chats. My dad gave me one of those half pats on the back like I'd finally earned a sliver of approval. I held on to that feeling like it was fragile glass. But by the end of the night, you would have thought I brought a rat carcass instead of cake. It started small. A weird glance here, a whisper there. Juliet went from warm to icy in the span of 2 toasts. Mom avoided eye contact. Dad's face twisted back into his natural expression, disappointed constipation. Even Jeremy, who usually just ignored me unless he needed help with a password, glared at me like I'd burned the house down instead of baking a cake. I kept replaying the evening in my head, searching for what I did wrong. One second, I was joking with the bartender about how I almost forgot the cake knife. The next, I was standing alone while Mason's cousin whispered something with wide eyes to my aunt, who immediately turned and stared at me. By the time I carried the empty cake stand back to my car, it was obvious something was very, very wrong. I just didn't know what yet. It wasn't until the next morning that I found out. Jeremy texted me 2 words. Unbelievable, Anita. I frowned at my phone, still half asleep and smelling faintly of buttercream. What? I typed back. You really did that? He replied. My heart started to race. Did what? No answer. Instead, my mom called. The second I picked up, she didn't even say hello. She launched straight in like a missile. How could you do this to your sister after everything? She snapped. Did you really think we wouldn't find out? I sat up in bed. Find out what? I asked, stunned. She let out a harsh, disbelieving huff. You were spreading rumors about Mason cheating during their engagement party. You announced it to the bartender, in public, in front of everyone. I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. It burst out of me, this shaky, disbelieving sound. What? No, Mom. I asked the bartender if they had a box for the cake topper. That's it. She wasn't listening. According to the version she'd heard, I had walked up to the bar and loudly announced that Mason was cheating on Juliet with some girl from his gym, and that I hoped she found out before the wedding. Apparently, I was jealous and trying to sabotage her happiness because my life wasn't as shiny as hers. I would never, I started, but Mom cut me off. Save it, Anita. Your sister is devastated. Your father is furious. You've embarrassed this family enough. My stomach dropped. Embarrassed. That word echoed in my head like a curse. I didn't say that, I whispered. I didn't even know he went to a gym. But no one cared what I knew. Within hours, Juliet blocked me on everything. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts stayed on delivered, like little ghosts. Dad sent one message. You're not welcome at family dinners until you grow up and apologize. Mom's last text read, don't bother coming around until you're ready to admit what you did. Confess to something I didn't do. Apologize for words I never said. That was the last real contact I had with any of them for 5 years. You know what's wild? I grew up hearing that family is everything, that no matter what happened, we'd always stick together. Mom even had one of those cringy needle points in the hallway. Blood makes you related, but love makes you family. Apparently, she forgot to read the second half of her own decor. Because the moment some distant cousin with gossip-flavored brainworms opened her mouth, my entire family dropped me like I'd committed a felony mid-toast. I went from Anita the baker to Anita the bitter saboteur in less than 24 hours. For the first month, I tried to fix it. I really did. I texted Juliet over and over, all left unread. I sent her a handwritten letter, like some desperate character in an old movie. Bought a card. Wrote out everything I remembered from that night. I even included a copy of the bakery invoice with the cake details to prove I'd been too busy piping frosting to be plotting character assassinations. No response. I called Mom. She picked up once. Can we just talk? I asked. Talk about what? Lies? She said, then hung up. Dad didn't even try. His last message just said, maybe this will finally teach you consequences. Consequences. For bringing a cake. At some point, I realized I had two choices. Keep banging my head against a locked door or build a different house. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I worked. I poured everything into the bakery. My best friend Sasha and I renamed it Second Rise, which felt poetic in a way that made my throat tight. She handled the front end and the books. I handled the dough, the recipes, the 4:30 a.m. alarms. We started small, but every month we grew. Weddings, anniversaries, birthdays. One day, a food blogger posted a photo of our signature caramel sea salt tart, and it blew up. Within 3 months, we were booked out 6 weeks in advance. Within a year, we had a second location. Within 2, I was teaching evening baking classes, training a small team. My family? Silent. They didn't notice when I won the local 30 under 30 award. They didn't notice when I donated cakes to charity events they attended. They didn't even react when my face ended up plastered on the side of a delivery van they probably drove past on the freeway. I used to imagine my mom scrolling social media, seeing a post about our peach cobbler cake and pausing, fingers hovering over the screen. That's my daughter, she might think. Probably not. But here's the thing. I stopped needing them to clap for me. I just wanted peace. And for a while I had it. Until one random Thursday, 5 years later, my phone lit up with an unknown local number. I let it go to voicemail. Unless it's a vendor or a delivery issue, I don't pick up mystery calls. A few minutes later, Sasha poked her head into the kitchen, holding her phone. Anita, she said in that tone that means something's off. You're going to want to hear this. She hit play on the voicemail. It was Juliet. 5 years. No calls, no texts, no apology. Just her voice out of nowhere, shaky and uncertain. Anita, I know this is probably the last thing you want, but I need to talk to you. Please call me back. I know the truth now about what happened. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, hands dusted in flour, spatula frozen midair, heart turning to ice. The truth? That voicemail broke something loose in my chest. Not in a satisfying, finally redemption way. More like a heavy, do I even want this anymore? Way. Because here's what no one tells you about being cut off by your own family. You grieve them like a death. And after 5 years, you're not sure you want a resurrection. I didn't call her back. Not that day. Instead, I listened to that voicemail 4 times. The lemon pound cake on the cooling rack went cold and forgotten while I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the call button, over a half-typed message. Hey, I got your message. What truth? Then I deleted it. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was curiosity or bitterness keeping me up. Either way, one thing was clear. Whatever truth Juliet had found, it was 5 years too late. I didn't call Juliet back that night, or the next morning, but her voicemail sat inside my phone like a live wire, humming under my skin every time I thought about it. Sasha noticed before I even opened my mouth. By noon, I had sifted the same batch of flour 3 times. Sasha finally leaned against the prep table, arms crossed. Okay, Anita, you're either having a breakdown or trying to invent the world's fluffiest cake. What's going on? I hesitated, then sighed. Juliet called. Her eyebrows shot up. The ghost speaks? She says she knows the truth now. Sasha snorted. And we care because I didn't answer. Because deep down, I wasn't sure if I cared out of curiosity or because some pathetic, wounded piece of me still wanted my sister back. Before I could figure out which it was, my phone buzzed with another unknown number. Voice message again. Sasha and I stood shoulder to shoulder when we hit play. This time, Juliet's voice wasn't shaky, it was panicked. Anita, please. I know you probably hate me. I wouldn't blame you, but I need to tell you what happened. It wasn't you, it was Mason. My blood ran cold. He told people you said something, but it was him. He said it first. He was the one cheating. Someone at his gym. I found the messages, everything. I was so stupid. Please, I need to talk to you. The message ended with her quietly crying. For a long moment, the only sound in the kitchen was the low hum of the refrigerators. Sasha let out a long, slow breath. Well, she said, I always knew Ken doll had a dark side. But I wasn't laughing, because somehow, even though I always believed I didn't do anything wrong, hearing that Mason had actually been cheating, that he'd started the rumor, it ripped open a wound I thought had scarred over. I wiped my hands on my apron, took my phone, stepped out behind the bakery, and sat on an old milk crate. Then I finally did the thing I didn't want to do. I called Juliet back. She answered on the second ring, breath hitching. Anita? Oh my God, thank you. Thank you for calling. Just talk, I said quietly. And she did. She told me everything. How Mason had been cheating for months with a woman from his boxing gym. How one of his friends had warned him the news might leak. How, in a moment of panic, and because Mason always needed to look perfect, he decided to plant the story that I had been the one spreading it. He told everyone you said it first, Juliet whispered. He said you were jealous, bitter, trying to ruin the night. I closed my eyes. It felt like being dragged back through 5 years of humiliation in seconds. Mason always had a way of twisting things, Juliet continued. I should have asked you. I should have talked to you, but I didn't. I just believed him. Her voice cracked. I destroyed us. I destroyed our family because of a lie. I could have unleashed everything I had held in, 5 years of grief, anger, abandonment, but I didn't. Because she wasn't standing on a pedestal anymore. She was sitting in the wreckage of her own life. You didn't destroy us, I finally said. You just showed me who was willing to burn the bridge. There was a pause, a painful, honest one. Then Juliet whispered, I'm so sorry, Anita. I didn't respond to that part. I didn't know how. We ended the call with her asking if we could meet. I said I'd think about it. And I meant it. But fate had other plans. The next morning, when I unlocked the front doors of Second Rise, warm dawn light spilling across the floor, my stomach dropped. Because standing outside, hands clasped, eyes nervous, was my entire family. Mom, Dad, Jeremy, even Aunt Susan, who once called my bakery a hobby shack during a Thanksgiving prayer. They looked like they were waiting to be let into a VIP club they'd forgotten how to enter. Sasha, standing beside me, muttered, Well, I wish it was zombies. I swallowed hard. Same. Then I tightened my apron, took a breath, and stepped outside, letting the cool morning air hit my face. Dad spoke first. Anita, he said quietly, we're sorry. And just like that, 5 years of silence fractured. Dad's apology hung in the air like smoke, thin, choking, impossible to ignore. Mom's eyes were already shiny with tears, her hands twisting the strap of her purse like she was trying to wring guilt out of it. Jeremy stood stiffly behind them, shifting from foot to foot, wearing that practiced attorney expression that said he was hoping for mercy from a judge. Except I wasn't a judge. I was the daughter they'd abandoned. I crossed my arms. That's it? We're sorry? Mom stepped forward. Juliet told us everything. About Mason, about the messages. We didn't know. I let out a laugh, not a happy one, more like a you must be kidding me kind of sound. 5 years, I said slowly. 5 years of silence. 5 years of treating me like a villain in a story I didn't write. You didn't know, I repeated quietly, because you didn't ask. Jeremy jumped in, hands raised defensively. Come on, Anita, it was a misunderstanding. Oh? I tilted my head. A misunderstanding? Like I lost your AirPods and not my entire relationship with you? His jaw closed. He had no comeback for that. Mom's voice cracked. We just want things to go back to the way they were. And that line hit me harder than anything else they'd said. I took a step back. The way they were? I repeated. You mean when you rolled your eyes at me every time I talked about the bakery? When you treated my work like a hobby? When you believed a stranger at a bar over your own daughter? That's the way things were? Mom's lips trembled. I shook my head. You didn't lose me because of a rumor. You lost me because when things got ugly, you didn't even look in my direction. Their silence was louder than any argument. I turned toward the bakery door. You're 5 years too late for a group hug. And I walked inside. Sasha held the door as I passed her, eyebrows raised. You didn't throw anything, she whispered. I'm impressed. I'm evolving, I muttered. But the universe? It wasn't done being awkward. Over the next week, my family came back. Not all at once, not with signs or groveling, but in waves. Like guilt tides. Wave 1, Mom. She left a Tupperware on the counter with a note that said, Thought of you. Hope these are better. Inside, her infamous dry lemon bars, the same ones I once described as citrus-flavored regret. I didn't touch them. Sasha did. Even she winced. Wave 2, Jeremy. He showed up during my Thursday night baking class, hovering near the aprons like he wasn't sure if he should apologize or sue someone. Hey, Anita, he said awkwardly. Can we talk sometime? I gestured to the rising dough. Talks in progress. Do first. Drama later. He blinked. Is that a no? It's a not now. He left looking less like a lawyer and more like a confused toddler. Wave 3, Dad. He didn't come inside. He just sat in his car outside the bakery for 20 minutes, engine running, staring at the entrance like he was waiting for courage or permission. I didn't go out. I didn't wave. He eventually drove off. And weirdly, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel anger. Just distance. Juliet never showed up that week. Not at first. Instead, she posted a long, dramatic Facebook status about truth, time, betrayal, and the people who really matter. Vague enough for plausible deniability, dramatic enough to ignite comment wars among our extended family. Sasha read it out loud in a fake British accent. I almost choked on a piece of biscotti. But here was the surprising part. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. 5 years of being painted as the jealous saboteur, 5 years of silence, 5 years of rebuilding my life without them. Something in me had shifted. The hurt was still there, quiet, deep. But the rage? Gone. All I felt was a strange, aching detachment, like they'd become characters from a show I stopped watching. And in the space they left behind, something else had grown. Peace. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind. The slow kind. The kind that settles into old wounds like warm light. I had my people now. Sasha, our small bakery team. Regulars who brought their kids on Saturdays. Couples who asked me to cater their weddings. People who showed up day after day without guilt or expectation. That was family. The only person I still felt uncertain about was Juliet, because despite everything, I missed her. Not the version who iced me out, the version who used to steal cookie dough and deny it with batter on her face. So when she finally texted me, "Can I come by? Just us?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Okay." And a few hours later, my sister walked into the bakery for the first time in 5 years. She looked around like she was scared to touch anything. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It works," I said. We stood there in a silence so fragile I could practically hear our childhood sliding between us. Finally, Juliet exhaled. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything, for not asking, for believing him, for not standing up for you." I swallowed, then handed her a cupcake, vanilla bean with raspberry center. Her favorite. "I won't lie," I said. "You hurt me worse than anyone ever has." She nodded, eyes glossy. "I know. But," I continued softly, "you're trying now, and maybe that counts." She took a bite, and for a split second, just a heartbeat. We were sisters again. Messy, flawed, not fixed. But here, Juliet didn't come back the next day, or the day after that. And honestly, that made her apology feel real. Not rushed, not desperate, not performative. Just steady. Every few days, she'd stop by early in the morning when the bakery was quiet. She'd grab a coffee, a scone, sometimes a small box of pastries for a neighbor. I didn't ask which neighbor. We both knew she was testing the waters. Not pushing, not rushing, just showing up. A little at a time, like someone trying to rebuild a bridge plank by plank instead of pretending the collapse never happened. And every time she came, she brought something small. Not gifts, not bribes, just memories. One morning, she placed a photo album on the counter. The cover was peeling, the spine bowed. I recognized it instantly. "I found this in Mom's garage," she said, brushing dust off the corner. "Look." Inside was the cake I made for her 13th birthday, the one that collapsed on one side because I hadn't figured out leveling yet. It looked like a deflated soccer ball wearing pink frosting. I groaned. "I can't believe we documented that disaster." She laughed softly. "It tasted amazing, though. And you put gummy worms inside because I said I liked surprises." We sat on a flour-dusted bench flipping through photos, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, our disastrous attempt at making gingerbread houses when we were kids. And for the first time in years, I didn't see Juliet the golden child, or Juliet the stranger who blocked me. I saw Juliet, my sister. She closed the album. I'm not asking you to fix everything with Mom and Dad, she said quietly. I just don't want to lose you again. I swallowed, hard. You did lose me, I said, but maybe you found someone better this time. She nodded. I hope so. That softened something in me, but it also sharpened my boundaries. Because while Juliet was trying, honestly trying, the rest of them, they still hadn't earned the right to knock on my door. Mom was the first to try. She called one afternoon while I was frosting a carrot cake. Anita, she began gently, I think it's time we rebuild the family. Family. The word hit me like a draft from a door I'd closed years ago. Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady, I'm not ready. She sighed like I was giving her homework. Well, how long will that take? I stopped frosting. Longer than 5 years, I said. That's how long you left me behind. She went quiet. A new kind of quiet. One that felt like realization finally cracking her pride. That was the beginning of her learning curve. Dad tried next, but he didn't call. He emailed. Subject line, let's talk. The body. Anita, I recognize things got out of hand. I may have overreacted based on what we were told. I regret that now. Let me know if you'd like to come by for dinner sometime. A dinner invitation from a man who hadn't spoken to me in half a decade. It felt less like an apology and more like a memo from a regional manager trying to schedule a quarterly review. I read it 3 times, deleted nothing, responded to nothing. Sasha peered over my shoulder. Are you gonna go? I shook my head. Some doors stay shut for a reason. But even as I said it, I thought of Juliet. She wasn't asking for the old version of us, she was building a new one. Slowly, gently, honestly. The others weren't doing that. They wanted shortcuts. Then came the retirement party. Not mine, not Juliet's. Dad's. A big, fancy country club event with white tablecloths, crystal centerpieces, and a guest list longer than some weddings. Cousins, neighbors, old colleagues. Even that one guy who fixed their roof in 2006. But not me. I only found out because one of our cousins posted a picture online, tagging half the family. Sasha held up her phone like it was evidence. Guess who's not on the guest list? I stared at the screen. No invitation, not even as a pity add-on. That was the moment everything clicked. They didn't want to rebuild. They wanted to reset, to pretend the past never happened, to sweep everything under the rug so their family image stayed shiny. Juliet came by the next morning, eyes tight. I told them not inviting you was a mistake, she said. But they don't get it. They think because you're not angry anymore, you're over it. I exhaled slowly. They still think this is about one party. It's not, she whispered. No, I said. It's not. I left their house years ago, Jules, and I built my own. Her eyes softened, and it's better than anything they ever had. I managed a small smile, I know. 1 week later, Mom walked into the bakery again. No lemon bars, no shaky excuses, no overly rehearsed pity voice. This time she held a manila envelope. Just give me 5 minutes, she said, please. Against my better judgment, and because Sasha wasn't there to physically block her, I let her sit at the corner table. She slid the envelope toward me. It's letters, she said softly, from all of us. Me, your dad, Jeremy, even Susan. I didn't touch it. Letters? I repeated flatly. She nodded. We didn't know what else to do. Juliet said you weren't ready for a sit-down, so we wrote. I stared at the untouched envelope. Did it ever occur to you, I said slowly, that I wasn't ready because you already said everything you needed to say 5 years ago? Her voice wavered. Anita, we were wrong. I finally looked at the envelope. It was thick, stuffed full, but the weight didn't impress me. If anything, it irritated me. You could have written 5 years ago, I said. Instead, I got silence. And now, when it's convenient, you hand me homework and call it healing? Tears welled in her eyes. We just want our family back. You have your family, I said. You just didn't include me in it. She looked down, defeated. Is there anything we can do? I let the silence stretch. Then I met her eyes and said, yes. Her expression lifted with desperate hope. I leaned back in my chair. You can leave. She blinked. What? You heard me, I said. Take the letters. Take the guilt. Take whatever fantasy you've built about this being a misunderstanding, and leave. She sat frozen, mouth parted, heartbreak written across her face. But she stood, picked up the envelope, walked to the door. At the threshold, she paused. I do love you, she whispered. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. That's the thing about love, Mom, I said. It doesn't count if it shows up after the damage. Then I opened the door, for her this time, and watched her step into the sunlight. The bell jingled behind her like it was congratulating me. That night, Sasha and I closed up early. We sat on the back steps drinking hot chocolate, steam curling into the cool air. "So," she said, bumping my shoulder, "you ready to admit you handled that like a total badass?" I smirked. "I didn't throw the mug at anyone. That counts as growth." "Sainthood level restraint," she said seriously. "But really, how do you feel?" I took a long breath. "Lighter," I said, "like I've been carrying around an entire room full of people on my back." And I finally set it down. She raised her mug. "To growth." I clinked mine against hers. "To boundaries." "And," she added with the grin, "to having the last word." I smirked. "Actually," I said, standing and looking out at the quiet street, "the last word is—" I turned off the bakery lights from the back door. Closed. A month passed. No more surprise drop-ins. No more manila envelopes. No more retirement parties I wasn't invited to. Just quiet. And honestly, I loved it. The bakery hummed with its usual rhythm, mixers whirring at dawn, customers chatting over morning pastries, Sasha yelling, "Who used the good vanilla?" at least twice a week. Life felt stable, warm, mine. Juliet still came by now and then, always early, always gentle about it. She didn't push. She didn't pry. She just showed up with soft eyes and cautious hope, like someone talking to a skittish animal that might bolt if approached too quickly. And slowly, something between us began to mend. Not a perfect fix, not a snap back to childhood, not a movie montage of hugs and giggles, but something real, something honest. Some mornings, she'd bring a candle labeled Cinnamon Nostalgia, or a mug with Best Sister Ever on it, still with the clearance sticker attached. I kept the mug, not because the title was true yet, but because the effort was. The others, though. Mom stayed silent. Dad stayed distant. Jeremy left a few awkward voicemails that sounded like he was rehearsing for a courtroom plea. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted revenge, but because healing isn't the same thing as reopening old wounds. And then, on a quiet Friday afternoon, with only 30 minutes left before closing, the bell above the door rang. I looked up and froze. Standing in the doorway was Mason. Older, thinner, less polished. Like someone had taken the life he curated for Instagram and shoved it into a blender without securing the lid. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets. His eyes darted around the bakery like he wasn't sure he belonged there. "Anita," he said. Just hearing my name in his mouth sent a cold ripple down my spine. "Got a minute?" I wiped my hands on my apron. "You've got 10 seconds before I call the fire marshal and report an unidentified grease stain." He blinked, then actually tried to smirk, as if he still thought he had charm to spare. "I just wanted to say, I didn't mean for all that to happen." "All what?" I asked. "The cheating, the lies, or the part where you fed my family a story that turned me into a ghost for 5 years?" He opened his mouth, but I wasn't finished. "Don't worry," I said evenly. "I'm not angry anymore." That seemed to confuse him. "I'm just not interested." His eyebrows knit. "Not interested in what? Talking?" Talking, explaining, excusing, justifying, anythinging. I pointed behind him, to the sign on the bakery door. "Please close the door behind you." Mason looked at the sign, looked back at me, then looked at the sign again, unsure if it was literal or metaphorical. It was both. He took a step back, another. But before he left, I added softly, "Next time you want to ruin someone's life, try ruining your own first." His face went blank, like no one had ever spoken to him without either fear or flattery. Then the bell rang again as he stepped out, and the door clicked shut behind him. A sharp, definitive sound. Maybe it was just the door seal. Maybe it was closure. But in that moment, it felt like both. I turned off the open sign. The bakery was quiet, except for the low hum of refrigerators. Even the air felt peaceful. I stood there for a long moment, hands resting on the counter I'd built my life around. Then I flipped the lock. This time, the click wasn't for Mason, wasn't for my parents, wasn't for Juliet. It was for me. Because for the first time in a long time, my story was mine again. My peace was mine again. My door was mine again. And I finally understood something I should have realized years ago. You don't need to open the door just because someone knocks. Not even if they share your last name. Not even if they say, "I'm sorry." Not even if you once loved them. Some doors stay shut for a reason. And others? Others you open slowly, carefully, only for people who earn their way back in. Juliet did. Sasha always had. The rest? Well, I turned off the lights, walked to the back exit, and stepped into the cool night air. Above me, the bakery's sign glowed softly. Second Rise. A name that used to feel poetic now felt like prophecy. I smiled, locked the door behind me, and whispered to myself the same thing I'd said weeks ago. But this time it wasn't about boundaries. It was about triumph.